among those whom thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what thou hast judged. Surely thou judgest, and none can judge against thee, and he whom thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art thou, O Lord, and exalted be thee above what they set up besides thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Sister Sajdah Muhammad. Join us for Donate and Sip 2. We are hosting an event to help raise funds for the completion of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House Museum. The event will take place Saturday, July 9th, 2022. This non-alcoholic wine and sparkling tea tasting event is sponsored by Magnolia Crescent Non-Alcoholic Winery and will be held at the historic Honorable Elijah Muhammad House located at 4847 South Woodlawn Avenue in the rear garden. Bring a friend, come by, and celebrate this historic project with us on Saturday, July 9th, 2022 from 4 to 7 p.m. Central Time. To register for this historic event, click the link in the bio or simply go to eventbrite.com and search Donate and Sip. Capacity is limited.
Muslims, you shouldn't be around here looking to white people to give you a job. Go look in message to the black man and the economic blueprint. And if there are 4 of you, 6 of you, 8 of you together, pool your resources, go into business and set up business all over the south and west side of Chicago. But if you poor and we poor, hell man, we can't be around here poor. I want to see rich Muslims. And if you obey Allah, there's no reason why you can't make a business successful. You just have to get up and stop being lazy and trifling and go do something for yourself.
You belong to yourself. You're an independent people, created from the nation of free people.
Yes, sir.
You don't need to go nowhere but to yourself.
Yes, sir.
There will be a great separation.
Yes, sir.
So I said, it is on now.
The college is meant to prepare you for your future. That the time dictates that if we don't do something for ourselves as a people, we will be destroyed. And the aim of the enemy right now is to take us out.
We have God with us. We have Him as our guide. Yes, sir. We don't have to stand around here and ask the question, what must be done? Yes, sir. Get up and let's go and do something. Yes, sir. We cannot sit down. We cannot lay down. Yes, sir. We must get up. Yes, sir. And go to work.
Do you know what real joy is in life? Visioning something and bringing it into reality. That's real joy. Do you know what the next step in joy is? Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell in unity.
tonight, you need to fasten your seatbelts. We're going to hear from some of the greatest minds in the world. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of trusting our future and the future of our children into the hands of those who don't love us. I believe we need to revitalize black leadership.
Assalamu alaikum, family. Welcome to the MOEToday series on manifestation. I'm so excited tonight. Listen, I'm not even going to waste no whole lot of time. Let me just give y'all a quick recap. During week 1, we started now it's been 3 weeks ago, we started our series on the accomplishments of the Muslims. And what we did was we did a special screening of the movie, A Nation of Common Sense. And that was brought to us by NOI Archives and student minister Carlos Muhammad. And so if you missed that, go back and check that out. Then last week, I came back and did a comparative analysis of the economy in the 1970s and the economy today. And I wanted to do that to kind of help prove to you all that by dissecting this economic program, it will work in today's economy, despite all the gloom and doom that's out there in the news, because we had 20% interest rates back then in the late 60s and early 70s when this economy was built. So this week, I decided to bring to you one of my friends, a good brother, good friend of mine I've known for years. We are iconic for our epic conversations on the economy. And I'm going to read you a little bit about him. But the best way to get to know him is to just sit back and listen. Listen, his name is Brother Bedford. And yes, that's his name, Brother Bedford. Brother Bedford is an amazing, best-selling Amazon author and host of Conversations with Black Millionaire Entrepreneurs and Black America's #1 internet marketing and digital publishing coach, consultant, and strategist. Did y'all hear me? This is a jewel in our Black Muslim community, but a jewel in the Black community. He is quickly becoming a fresh, new, and trusted face for empowerment, entrepreneurship, and online business building in our community. Brother Bedford sees entrepreneurship as the answer to curtail unemployment and corporate dependency at a time when both are proving detrimental to our community. Brother Bedford has been seen and featured on NBC, Radio 1, XM Radio, and a lot of other radio stations and television programs and websites around the world. He was handpicked by best-selling author and business icon Mr. Networker himself, Dr. George Fraser, to present and be a part of the Power Networking Conference, the largest business and networking conference in the world for African Americans. And after years of intense study, trial, and error, Brother Bedford has worked with, trained, and coached hundreds of budding and seasoned entrepreneurs from all over the world with their online and offline businesses. He helps Black entrepreneurs build bigger, better, and brighter futures. And if you go to his website, brotherbedford.com, he says this, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. He believes that Black entrepreneurs are the change agents who will transform our Black world. That's why he became an entrepreneur, and that's why he's so passionate about our entrepreneurial success. He's interviewed and worked with hundreds of Black millionaires, thought leaders, and icons, and he shares those lessons and ideas with everybody. And we're going to talk a little bit about the work that he's done in interviewing some of these Black millionaires, just because I just want you all to get a little taste of who he is. So let me bring my brother on. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Bedford.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you, Sister Sajdah?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Man, you know, I am extremely excited. I'm humbled. I feel so privileged to share this space with you and to be able to have this conversation. You mentioned earlier, every time you and I get together, we have these iconic conversations surrounding entrepreneurship and business and the economy. as it pertains to our people. I think that's what makes our conversation so unique and iconic, is that we've tried to do what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has instructed us to go out and get the knowledge and the wisdom from all of the scholars and scientists of the world, but filter them through the teachings and the lessons of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I think you and I have been blessed to have those types of conversations. So again, I'm just thrilled to be with you, and I'm anxious for this conversation.
Brother Bedford, every time you and I do this, I think we did our first one back in 2010. It's always the number one most listened to either of my podcast or radio station. So,
Wow.
we're going for a record with this one right here.
Wow. I think we just have a great chemistry, and I think it's our love for our teacher, our people, and this work. So I think that's what kind of does it. Sometimes you're talking to people who don't have the same objective and interests in mind. They may have great ideas and sincere about what they're doing, but it's something about just having that common thread that you and I have that gives us the chemistry to do what we do.
That's exactly right. That's why unity is so important for us, because if you don't have that mindset of unity, we would never have even known that we connected, I think, talking about the economy back in 2010. And we had this whole, I think it was something about the state of the economy or something like that. But I got to pull those up. People would probably like to listen to those. I mentioned, because I kind of skimmed over your bio, and I know that you did an incredible amount of work interviewing Black millionaires. Can you talk to the audience about that before we get into the accomplishments of the Muslims?
Sure. And I'll do that rather quickly, because we still interview successful Black millionaires and entrepreneurs, people who've done great numbers in their business endeavors. But my motive for doing that, I believe at that time, I was reading a book after I'd gotten into the internet space. It was called Conversations with Millionaires. And in that book, there was only one Black person in that book, and that was Wallace Amos from Famous Amos Cookies. And it had Robert Kiyosaki's and all of those different people in the book, Zig Ziglar. And that's when the idea hit me. I said, wouldn't it be nice if someone interviewed our successful Black millionaires and had that type of conversation? We've had others do work like that. Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, who I interviewed, one of those who I interviewed, he has the work of interviewing Black millionaires, but he called it, there was Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice that he did with Napoleon Hill. But then he also had another book, which is actually my favorite, What Makes the Great Great. And then he just took all of the lessons and he kind of distilled it in his work. Dr. George C. Frazier did something similar, but of course his was centered around networking. I wanted to dive into what makes these Black millionaires and entrepreneurs successful and just distill those principles back to our people. So that was the motive behind it. I think there was a television program out at that time called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And I'll never forget being in the mosque and that program had come out. And I believe the very first season, the question to win $1 million was, how far is the sun away from the earth? Yeah, go back and take a look at that. And I know Black Muslims all over the world was saying, I know that answer. I need to be
right. We may not know none of the other answers to the questions, but that one we know.
That one there for that first $1 million we knew. So it was just the millionaire language was something that I knew was attractive to our people. But I wanted to make it clear over the years that it's not necessarily about becoming a millionaire. It's really about, becoming free and having the choices to build business, live your life on purpose, to develop relationships, because all of these are intertwined in the lessons. But we get so caught up on the $1 million, the dollar amount of the figure, we don't necessarily get the lesson. So over the years, I've really tried to make it a point to explain that my objective was to extract the mindsets, the habits, the behaviors that allowed these Black millionaires to ascend to the heights that they did.
That's amazing. Because as I was listening to you, I always tell everybody the intention for the show. And the intention for this series was to calibrate ourselves to the accomplishments of the Muslims. And then I hear you talking about the work you've done. And again, that's another calibration process, tuning yourself to that frequency of that particular level of success. And I totally agree with you. The $1 million, you can't focus on that because you might be limiting yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You make a great point there, because many of them, the money is the result, right? The million comes as the result of doing the work. And I think sometimes, as I'm pretty sure we'll uncover that, you will throughout the series, but hopefully we'll be able to unpack a little bit of that throughout this conversation, that it's really the habits, the behaviors, and the mindsets that lead to those results. And as you mentioned or alluded to, it could be much more than $1 million. It could be less than $1 million, but at least you're doing what Allah has placed you on the earth to do.
That's the idea. That is the idea. Last week, Brother Bedford, I went into really painting a picture, and I did a little bit of a comparative analysis to the economy and what it was like in 1965, from about 65 to 72. And then I compared and contrasted that to our economy today, really to prove that the program worked then and will work again today. Any thoughts on that comparative analysis, or just what comes to the top of your head?
I loved the comparison that you did, and even just the time frame that you chose, because really, and I guess that's why our conversations are so explosive and iconic, is that we actually go into the history and the research that's the backdrop of these movements and ideas and concepts, instead of just talking about it. 1965, brothers and sisters, we were still struggling to get into the voting. That was the Voting Rights Act in 1965. Segregation was at its height. And so when you look at the time period, just on that alone, just the social dynamics, and I think that was probably a great power behind the success of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is that there was already a separation that was just apparent in the society, right? And if you notice, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad kept telling us that integration was a trick. And so as we move further along to today, we still have a lot of those political and social dynamics in play, but the trick of integration, I think, keeps our eyes or our focus off of the building of a new world or a new nation or these businesses that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did, because we don't feel as isolated as we once did back in the 60s and the 70s. But the economic backdrop, you hit the nail on the head with that one, because we are definitely in similar situations. And I would also add this part, because I thought about this when I looked at your notes. And I think a lot of brothers and sisters, again, you just have to kind of just look at the backdrop. Remember, Dr. King was assassinated in 1968 for speaking against the war in Vietnam. And remember his language, he talked about, he knew that false promise, right, of the war on poverty and the war in Vietnam could not exist together. And so we still get a lot of those same promises today, but he knew better and he started speaking out strongly. And then, of course, we know what ended up happening to him. Today, we have a similar backdrop. I mean, there's wars all over. There's been announcements from the president. They're actually extending NATO. That came out from the G7 convention this past week, which was really the impetus for what was happening with Russia. But my point is that America almost officially said we're entering into this war. They didn't use that language, but this is going to spread. But now you got that going on. The social dynamics here is more of an alarm for us to really revisit the program of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because that is falling, and what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad built and what we need to build will be sustaining.
Yeah, that's beautiful points. Beautiful points. Coming right up out of segregation, moving into 20% interest rates. Some of us can't even fathom interest rates being 20%, and we pointed out some of the comparisons for prices of bread and gas, and
Yep.
and the inflation was through the roof. And so I find it quite interesting that here we are today with some of the same or similar conditions,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're embarking upon working to build our ecosystem again. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's no coincidence, Brother
No,
Biff.
no,
It,
I agree with you. It's definitely not a coincidence.
it's almost like the conditions are so parallel that it's just mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
And but what it says to me is that it's a setup that says, then that means that if we dissect his economy and his economic structure, or our economy and economic structure that he gave to us,
Mm-hmm.
then it'll work today.
Absolutely, and I think it'll work more, right? Meaning because we have more sophistication in terms of the technology and the different things that we could utilize to advance those businesses. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad built very stable businesses for the community, right?
Mhm.
Today we have so many different opportunities. You and I mean, look at us. We're on this platform right now. This didn't exist then, right? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not doing Zoom
Correct.
or anything like that. So we have an opportunity to advance the messaging, the connections, and the relationships,
Hmm.
but those core businesses for the community development that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad initiated for us, I think is of paramount importance. Real quick, I went on vacation last week, and I was down in um, oh, Savannah,
Okay.
Georgia,
Hmm.
and the port. It's the third largest port outside of LA and New York.
Okay.
And of course, everybody's enjoying themselves. We went to get some sun, some beach, and things like that. I also found out that I became a grandfather while I was actually
Ooh,
actually on vacation. Thank you. And so really, that's why I got this. I said I'm gonna extend the vacation, and I got my grandpa beard growing because I'm trying to convince myself that I'm a grandfather now.
yeah,
This is,
yeah, you papa now, Brother Bedford.
yeah, couldn't believe it in my other door. She's like, you too young. You look too young to be a grandpa. I said, well, let me have a grandpa beard for a minute. Um, let me get back on point. But
Mhm.
while everybody was enjoying the little boat trip we had, I was just so fixated on the ports.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the ports and all of the products and services and the ships that were coming through. And then when we look at
Mm.
the Muslim accomplishments, you
Yes.
look at the importing of the fish from Peru. So that was the first thing that popped into my mind, is that the opportunity to get involved in the ports
Hmm.
where they're losing their grip. When they're talking about supply chain disruption and all of these different types of things,
Right.
it's an opportunity. But I thought about the ports from what you had
Mhm.
shared last week with uh, the businesses of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and how that is something that is going, if it's not wide open now, it's something that's going to be wide open for us in the future, because they just, um, for whatever reasons, we don't need to get into everything that they're doing, but for whatever reasons, they're not able to sustain their ports now. There's reporting. I just saw one on CNBC today. They're just having a terrible time in LA and the LA ports. And so there's going to be an opportunity for us to really get back into international trade and commerce at some point. But you really made me think deeply about it when you shared what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did with the fish program of the Muslims. And for those who don't know, I don't know if it's still, but up until around maybe 10, 15 years ago, nobody had imported more fish
Yeah.
than the Muslims in the United States of America. That's a historical fact. Now, I don't know if that has changed since then. That's how powerful that was in the late 60s and 70s, that nobody before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had imported more fish and negotiated directly with another country to do that provided jobs on the East and West Coast, just that one industry. And I just wanted to kind of shine a light on that, is that all it takes is something like that to really begin to make movement in just a lot of different areas, and the subsequent businesses that come from something like that.
You know, Brother Bedford, I'm sitting here thinking, I didn't realize that there was an issue with controlling the ports right now. Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I know we don't have a lot of time to go into that. It's just something that I've been studying for some reason a few years ago. It was something that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had said, and I just can't remember what it was. But all of a sudden, I just become fascinated with starting to look at the ports. And I believe it was something that was also in the secret relationships between Blacks and Jews. If you notice, all of those areas in Louisiana, and of course, where I am in Georgia, and these were the slave ports. But now these ports have become the means by which international trade and commerce is done, of course, on the both coasts, East and West, but also in the South and in the Gulf region. And I've always wondered, if that was how they built their wealth. I believe it was a secret relationship between Blacks and Jews, Volume 2, in reading about how they took over the ports, and then, of course, how that became the way that they shipped out. I'm actually looking at the map in my head, how the cotton was shipped out back up to Europe. And I always said, man, why shouldn't those who were the slaves during that time become the owners of those ports? And if you notice, those people who are the founders of these places, they're actually the owners of a lot of these ports. And I know you're going to talk about this later, but the DuPonts and the Rockefellers and the people like that, even in where I'm originally from in Detroit, private families own the Ambassador Bridge and things like that. So it's just something to think about as we move forward and start expanding, that how do we begin to invest in ports and bridges and things like that?
Yeah, I agree. Well, look, big fields await the wide awake man and woman to work out in, right?
Absolutely. And a mind stretched by new ideas never returns to its original dimension. So I'm hoping by us talking about it, again, we plant the seed for brothers and sisters to begin to think about a bigger, brighter, and better future for us, instead of what we think we're facing.
Yeah, the idea is the calibration process, but what tends to trip us up? Because oftentimes when you talk to us, individually, we sound good. But it's something about the propaganda that gets to us, that causes us to lose our discipline. And as a Muslim in the business community, have you noticed any specific stereotypes or propaganda that we need to address or clean up in order to build trust and be viewed as viable, investment-worthy business people?
Yeah, no, I think you just used a great phrasing when you talked about losing our disciplines, because I don't think we have a problem with our reputation initially. I think what happened, first, let me put it this way: everybody wants to hire the Muslims. And every business space I'm in, we make, and of course that's due to our disciplines and our training, that people don't have a problem saying, I want to hire the Muslims to provide security. I don't mind hiring the brothers, because they're going to show up on time. They're going to do what they say they're going to do. They're going to make their word bond. But there is something to be said, and I've fallen victim to this myself in full transparency, is that when you start getting into the business world, the business environment, you do begin to look at the trappings, right? I guess that's the right way to look at it, the successes of your business relationships. And I've always heard the minister, you talk about how when you get to those certain levels, then the others, or I don't want to necessarily call some of our brothers and sisters enemies, but just other people, they'll begin to almost treat us as if we're not in the nation, right? You're different. You're different, Sister Sajdah. You're not like the rest of them, right?
Brother Bedford, sorry to interrupt you, but I've literally even had former colleagues, since I started doing like the series on Black Muslim businesses and manifestation classes, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Doing this for free? Yeah. Who are those people?
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. And so you see, and I've had that same types of conversation. So I don't think it's necessarily a propaganda, and I hate to use this word. And you, matter of fact, well, you were on a call with us last night for the PNC, and it's just an actual fact that our brother said that one of the reasons he couldn't book the Honorable Minister Louis Farr, he didn't use this language, but sometimes they use this language because of the quote unquote baggage that comes with being in the nation or being associated with the minister, is that they don't going to your back to your initial question about the trust or them working with us or investing in us as business partners or affiliates. There's just something that comes along with the propaganda of being in the nation. However, I blame a lot of us who actually get a chance to get in that position and not standing strong. I believe, Sister Sajdah, you're one of the few. Like you said, you said his name is Brother Bedford, and people used to ask me, "You gonna make them call you?" I make them call me Brother Bedford. I do not.
Years you always been Brother Bedford.
Always, right from the very beginning.
Millionaire stage, and you like, "Hello, I'm Brother Bedford."
And I've had people say, "Well, no, what's your mama call you? What's your last name?" Well, I'm Brother Bedford, right? So it's staying strong in the midst of all that comes with that world. But I think you and I can, and many others, I'm sure, can bear witness, though, that after we've tasted and been a part of doing business in those environments, that there's nothing that compares to what we have in the Nation of Islam and in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But we just have to have a strong enough faith to kind of withstand all of the challenges that come with it. But we do compromise. I'll just be very honest. I've seen many of us get in those environments, and that's when the trust is eroded, because we come and they respect us as being followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the minister. But as soon as they see us deviate, as soon as they see us go to the bar, right, they know, oh, okay, yeah, he ain't all the way in. He ain't all the way in, right? So then it's not a complete deviation, but there's some compromise there. So that's what I would say that we have to overcome. But I believe that's what you and I are attempting to do. That's what these conversations are for us to make sure that we come back and as we're talking to primarily the brothers and sisters in the nation, to really let them know that there's nothing greater than what we have. We just have to buy all the way in to what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has taught.
It's interesting because on that call, it was said that Minister Farrakhan is the freest Black man.
Isn't that something? Think about that. Think about that.
So free that we can't even invite him to the conference. And not to make mockery, but I just thought, like, wow, look at that. Look at that contrast.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. It also plays into, and that had a little bit of a negative slant, although it was true. But to settle on the best part of that, Brother Bedford, I always say, and you probably heard me say this, that the NOI diaspora is huge.
It is.
It's huge. There's so many people that have been touched by the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan or one of us. So many people. And to that end, when we begin to provide avenues for those people, because they're wanting to help. They want to come. Sometimes they may call like runaway slaves, like, "Hey, assalamu alaikum. I got you, but they're there. And the diaspora is huge and it's strong. And I believe that as we move forward through this phase of the rebuilding, that diaspora is going to be critical.
Yes.
And, I've seen it in the work that I've been doing, with the restoration of the home. People in the diaspora just coming out like, "I got you. My mom's in the nation. My dad's in the nation.
Yep.
I was processing. My grandmother was a captain." I mean, and that happens more often than not.
Absolutely. Same here. I've actually had a brother that was, I don't know if I should say this. I won't say a name, but a brother who literally was greeting me, follows me, talks about the minister, but he's actually in a relationship with a white man, right? I mean, not to put anybody's business in the street, but even just to hear the history of him selling papers and all of those things. He believes in the teachings, but going back to the point that I made earlier, something about drifting so far off into this world that we get pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where the trust and all of those things begin to erode for us. But you're right. He's still there. If I called him right now and said, hey, Savior's Day or whatever, he's all in, right? Even though he's chosen some other lifestyle. It's something that I'm always dealing. Even last night on that call, I'm starting to feel when I'm in these environments more and more like I'm always in a state of mixed feelings and controversy.
Yeah.
When dealing with our people. It's an odd feeling, and I think I mentioned that to you probably a couple weeks ago. But even last night was the surest sign. I even wanted to interrupt when they was talking about the speed of the earth. I would say,
I know. I started to text you like that's not correct. I was sitting there when they said the speed of the earth, well, whatever they said. There's some say, you know what, don't.
I did.
Then I said, Brother Bedford ain't gonna say
I
nothing.
wasn't. You and I were both doing the same. I started to text you. It's amazing. But again, they're beginning to talk our language. They're beginning to dip their toe into knowledge that we have been just, some of us may have been ashamed of it. Some of us may not bought all the way in, or maybe some of us haven't even plumbed the depths of it. But you can bear witness, and I can bear witness that we were on a call last night with iconic figures and millionaires preparing for a conference. And the opening statement, that was actually the opening statement, was about they heard someone talk about the earth rotating at 67 miles per hour. And, and I
1,000 miles per hour, I think.
I wanted to raise my hand so bad, but I said, well, but this is what we deal with.
And then I started scrolling through the pictures to see if I saw you. I think you had your camera off, but I saw your name. I said, Brother Bedford ain't gonna say nothing. I said, well, what you asking him, Brother Bedford gonna say? You ain't gonna say nothing. I just said, forget it. You know what? This ain't the time.
Right. Just wasn't the time and the place.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about this. We know that the nation fell, and so did many of the businesses after the departure of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
And this caused a lot of trauma in our community and in the broader community as well. I was in a blessed conversation with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he said to me that this empire was built as a way to show us what we can do.
Yeah.
And I took that a step further, and I thought, I see it as an example or a template, including lessons on what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, through my studies, I learned that a lot of businesses were built and financed by the government of our Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And believers were often assigned to run those businesses. And it appears that there was already probably a warm market, and some of the struggles that we face today as entrepreneurs who are building independently with very little or no support from our community, the broader Black community or the Muslim community is a little bit of a different nuance this time. And that's why I set up the platform, the Black Muslim Business Directory, to help give us the opportunity that is needed. But I also believe that the individual struggle for support will help us to change who we are,
mm-hmm.
so that we become what we want, be as it is. And, Allah came to make himself known, and he is successful. This is how I think of it. He is successful. And if we are in his image and his likeness, then we too should be successful.
Right.
And today, since we have to become what we want to attract, which in my opinion can make the businesses more sustainable in the face of the departure of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So there's a slightly different nuance there this time. Slightly.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to get your take on that, because you had these businesses that were set up and kind of run and operated and audited and even regulated by the Nation of Islam government, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then now today we're kind of on our own in business, and we're starting to create, these networking communities. But I think there's something about the struggle that we're being made to go through this time that inshallah will make it more sustainable.
Yes. Um, I first, I think the picture that you painted of that is accurate. I recall the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan using, and again, it wasn't that language about the government, but the minister used, I believe it's in the economic blueprint. I can't remember the year, but it's actually, they replayed it as a part of the time and what must be done. And he only says it very briefly. And he talks about what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said would be the next step to a certain type of economy, right? And you just described it, right? It's I don't want to call it, I don't know if the minister said communism, but that's a step in terms of, as you just mentioned, the government being in position to provide this type of structure. And I do think that something like that is coming, right? I mean, we can almost see that as this begins to implode and as the dollar begins to fall, if we believe that America is going through a fall, that means there has to be something after this. Now we can't just be all running around, so there has to be some type of structure.
Ain't gonna be a Will Smith movie eating each
Right,
other.
exactly, right. So there will be some organization, and I do believe that this is going to be the structure that will ultimately lead to us being enlightened enough to truly run an Islamic economy and government. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know when that's going to happen, but just based upon what you've just laid out and what I've heard and what I've read from the teachings, I do believe that something like that is happening. Now, to the point about the nuances of the support, I do think that that's happening. That's what we're doing right now. Whether we understand it or not, we're literally building entrepreneurial communities, and we just have this new technology that allows us to do it. I don't know how many people are joining us live now, or how many people will watch the replay, and how many people will join you in your work or join me in my work after this. But just this instance, using this technology allows us to begin to spread this message further. So we are going to have these type of entrepreneurial communities that will begin to grow more and more. And we're kind of like the catalyst of that. So I do believe that support is coming, though, Sister Sajdah. I just don't know. I think a lot of stuff has to play out first. You know, you kind of mentioned the departure of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I think there's just some dynamics that have to play out. But here's one thing that I do want to say. With those businesses being the template, if you notice, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad always spoke or built those businesses and talked about the economic blueprint in a future tense to protect us against poverty and want, right? To have a future for our children. And I think a lot of times we're not realizing that we're building the motive for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad building these businesses and being this template or the example or the sign for us is that this is to be done in the future. If we're not thinking like that, right? If we're looking at the end of America or the fall of America, it's very hard. So we begin to develop what's called a scarcity mentality, right? We don't see the abundance of the hereafter.
Yeah.
Right? Set yourself in heaven at once, right? So there is an attitude that we have to begin to take on, because it is going to be hard to sustain and build a business while America is crumbling or the world is crumbling. But we're not building to be sustained in this world. We're building for something on the other side of it. And that for me, when I read the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I just read it yesterday. He said that's what we're doing. We're with this where we've come face to face at the end of this world. And most of us, his words were, most of us are not prepared, and we don't believe in prophecy enough to be prepared for the new world that's coming in. And I think that's where a lot of us as entrepreneurs, in particular Black entrepreneurs, we're struggling, because we can't necessarily see ourselves being the builders, leaders of a new world. Remember, he says there's going to be new automobiles. He says there's going to be new planes. And, a lot of us can't wrap our minds around what that would look like and feel like, but that's why we have to submit to the process, just like you and I are engaging in conversations that are open-ended, because this knowledge And your thoughts and ideas, remember, he puts in us a new mind first. These conversations, and a new thought. That's what we're doing. You and I are creating new energy, new thought, and we're sharing it with brothers and sisters of like minds that's going to produce new minds and new thinking and new connections on how do we build these similar types of businesses that we've seen in our community, but it has to be done differently based on a new idea that has come to us from Master Farad Muhammad. So we have to think about that and really begin to work towards it. I'm excited about it. I think
me too.
That's the truest sign, I believe. If we're not excited about what we're doing, we're not fascinated by it, we tend to kind of lose the energy and the spirit to support it. But if we begin to realize that we're getting ready to be the new rulers in a land where we were once sold as slaves, and we're the new leaders, the new business architects, that we are going to have these ports and the bridges, and that we're going to be the ones that's dictating how commerce is going to be done on the principles of righteousness. I think when we begin to embrace that, we'll start saying, hey, we need to meet for coffee. We need to go meet at the side house so that we can talk about this new idea that came to me last night.
Yes, that's right. I think about it all the time. And I also was thinking earlier before our conversation about how he built the tenets of his economy, or the economic model was based on food, clothing, and shelter. And then the byproducts or sub-services. And so when you think about that as a business, as a nation is falling, or a broader global economy is building, and an internal national nation economy is falling, when you think about businesses based on necessities, well, those are things you're going to always need. And that, to me, is what makes it sustainable. There's not a lot of frivolous stuff, in that economy. It's based on, and all those points I laid out last week, it's based on things that we need, which is what makes it more sustainable as well.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that tempts us, again, I got to go back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I was just reading this. It's because what we believe is going to happen, we think it's just going to go right back to the old, right? So we're anxious to get back to the NBA draft. Like right now, everybody's talking about free agency. Somebody's probably not on this call right now because they can't wait. They're anxious to see who's being traded tonight or who's signing in free agency. And I would say that COVID gave us a sign. It shut the NBA down, right? It shut the NFL down. And that was, I think, a glimpse of what can take place in the future. And I just think that sometimes we don't believe that a lot of the frivolity, a lot of the sport and play, and the $100 million contracts that excite us now, that keeps taking us further and further away from the necessities that you're talking about, which will be the true wealth in the future. These $100 million contracts don't mean nothing if the world is shut down. The only thing that's going to matter is food, clothing, and shelter. So I agree with you, Chris.
That's right. And that's why I believe in us setting up and starting to get calibrated to supporting our ecosystem.
Yes.
And looking to one another, first. You mentioned this a little bit, and we were taught that at 6 years old, Master Farad Muhammad saw himself pushing the Rockefellers and the DuPonts into a lake of fire.
Yes.
And since he came to make himself known and to give us our inheritance, you kind of alluded to this. What does this mean, in your opinion, for Black Muslims in business in terms of our understanding and sophistication in business?
It's so interesting that you made that point, Sister Sajdah, because it really has new meaning to me as I've done all of those interviews and did all of that stuff. But then now, full circle, whenever I'm working with someone, the first thing I talk to them about is their unique talent, skills, and gifts. What makes you unique? And in the studies that I've done, because I don't want to make a long story long, but in the studies that I've done about discovering your unique talent, skills, and gifts, you normally are born and around 6 years old, right? You start to you have an idea of what you want to be, right? You have these gifts, something comes naturally to you. You sing, you dance, or you draw, or you want to be a doctor. You have all of this grand vision at 6 years old, and then what happens? You go to school, and then they start killing that desire in you, that ambition, those natural talent, skills, and gifts. So I say all that to say that at 6 years old, Master Farad Muhammad saw his purpose, right? And I think for a lot of us, that's a lesson that we have to go back and start thinking about, what are my unique talent, skills, and gifts? And what did I see myself doing at the age of 6 years old and 7 years old? What naturally am I gifted at? I think in the world of entrepreneurship and business, one of the things that happen is that there's so much to do. I'm working on this circle, Sister Sajdah, and the name comes directly from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He said, "He who gives you the diameter of your knowledge prescribes the circumference of your activity," right? And so I've been thinking on this circumference of your activity thing for the last few years. And in the world of economics and business, there's just a lot of activity that happens that derails us, right? Because you know very well, Sister Sajdah, sometimes we do it all, right? We're the cook, we're the bottle washer, we're the maitre d', we got to do it all. But all of these are not activities that lead back to our talent, skills, and gifts.
Yeah.
I think it's at the center of that circle where we discover that. But then we have to learn. Now, this is where that entrepreneurial network comes in, that there are other people that have talents and skills and gifts, that they do all of these other activities better than us. And so there are things that I'm gifted at that I do well, but there's an activity of business or an activity of life that would best be served. If I say, Sister Sajdah, can you help me with this? Because this is where your excellence or your gifts or your talents are. And I think that's a skill that we have to start cultivating. What are we strong and naturally gifted at? There's some exercises and stuff. We can probably come back at another time and give some of the believers some exercises to kind of discover their unique talent, skills, and gifts. But to your point about him doing that and what does that mean for us? In my opinion, clearly the first part is that I believe that work is being done. You know, when we look at the banking crisis and all of these things that are happening to a lot of these families, rich families, the pharmaceutical industries. I mean, this is not by accident. And I do believe that Master Farad Muhammad is doing those things, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has told us that Allah would have to place his finger against the wealth of Pharaoh, right? You know, I think that's the one thing that keeps us distracted, is that they appear to be so wealthy. They appear to just be sitting in the driver's seat of everything in terms of wealth and economics. But I do believe that that's drying up. So I do believe that that work is being done. And I do believe now we have a work to do in those footsteps, whether it's helping to push them into the lake of fire.
And work on ourselves, right?
And that's what I was just going to say. Or more importantly,
your brothers and sisters, and not being competitive and not, and trying to, we got a lot of work we got to do around that, because those are things that make people go, okay, let me keep my circle tight.
Yeah.
Let me go in this little cocoon. So we have to be able to provide safe spaces for one another.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's what some of this work, inshallah, will help us to do.
It has to. And you just hit the nail on the head about that is the bigger work. And if I don't know if we talk about this question, but really being able to develop ourselves. I mean, we have the study guides, right? I don't want to. Again, I could go on and on about we have this information and all of these masterminds and things that I'm a part of and that we talk about in the business world. It ain't nothing but study group. I just tell everybody it's nothing but study group. So again, it's the language that's different from what we do in the nation, but the principles of how it's played out in the world of life and business, it's so apparent. If your eyes are open, you can just see it and say, man, we got this already. We just haven't activated it in these areas.
You know, Brother Bedford, years ago, you coined a phrase, old business models no longer work. And I actually stole the phrase from you. But I think about that often because I think sometimes we're mistaken and we think that we can go into the broader community, go to school, get a skill set, get experience, which is all very important, and then take that and lift it and bring it over here to our separate territories and to our Muslim economy and just do it and just say, okay, now it's a Black business or now it's a Black Muslim business. And years ago, when I was working with then Brother National Accountant Wazir Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, I remember having a conversation with him and I kept going back to what I had learned as an auditor or in school. And he kept hitting the table going, no, sister, you can't bring all that over here. You gotta infuse the teachings. You gotta infuse the teachings.
Right.
I remember thinking to myself, like, what? Right. But later, as I began to build businesses for myself, I understood exactly. And to this day, much of my success in business has been based on infusing the teachings there. Yeah. So I want you to talk a little bit about the concept of old business models no longer work.
Yeah. Again, I think we've kind of touched on it or kind of danced around it on the periphery, but you know, the European constructs of capitalism and business, it's their business models that many of us have followed. Even when we talked to in the meeting that we were in last night, the reason it's a struggle getting sponsorship dollars and things like that, because it's based off of an old business model, right, that's been passed on through corporate America. And I do believe, we said it earlier, I think we just did not understand the future tense of the teachings that we have, right? Even the language, if you notice, more and more people are coming back to even the language that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad used, even though we used to say, well, we got to speak, we can't speak baby language anymore. We start getting into the quote unquote, this more sophisticated, highfalutin language and all of these different things. But more and more people are coming back to, hey, we need to do something for self. I even heard Denzel Washington say that not too long ago. He said, do for self, right? And so the language, I think we just we have to, I don't know if we're coming back to it or we're just literally growing up to kind of understand what we've been taught. And so I do believe that the models that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us is going to be the most successful models. As everything is crumbling, you have to begin to think about, if there's going to be credit issues, right? If there's issues with currencies and all of these, what model can you think of that works best than 6 to 8 of you pooling your resources? And here's the challenge. Not everybody's trying to one up each other. You mentioned that's our challenge. I believe that's going to be our biggest challenge, is that we are still basing our success off of white people's success, right? I have to be the millionaire. I have to be the HNIC, or I have to be this. And that stops us from having those group economics that we're so desirous of, that we know we need, that is the solution to all of our issues, but we still can't release ego. We can't release pride. We can't release all of those things. So the combination of what we were taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the study guides. The study guides are the actual purification of us as individuals to implement what it is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We can't implement what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us if we cannot make it through the study guides.
Perfectly, beautifully said. Last point before we go, when you and I talked last week, you talked about people who run out of future.
Yes. And
explain that. And how does that impact their ability to do for self? And how does that play out in our actions or lack of action?
Yeah, we've been tap dancing around this one kind of all night too. But I would pray to Allah that we can, myself included. That's why I'm saying it the way that I'm saying, because I'm constantly talking myself into this, is that I can't look at a falling world and still try to build my successes in that, right? I have to be thinking about a bigger, better, brighter future. And a lot of what we're seeing, in my opinion, of us suffering is that we've run out of future. This is where we get depressed. This is where anxiety comes, because we can't see beyond what's happening here. Our future is based in this level of success with this company, and if we're getting laid off here, or this company isn't having success, or we've invested all of our money in cryptocurrencies and all of this type of stuff, we've run out of future. And so that's causing us a lot of angst and anxiety. And we all have to start thinking about, and I would challenge it, everybody's got a challenge nowadays. I would challenge each and every one of us, brothers and sisters, to start thinking about what is your bigger, better, brighter future. And that future, when you start fixating on that, on the principles that we've been taught, that future is actually like the magnet. It pulls you through what's falling. It pulls you through all of these trials and tribulations. But if we don't have a bigger and a brighter future, if we're not speaking in future tense, right? If we're not speaking beyond what we already know is happening, if we can't, those of us who've been giving the teachers, if anybody should be able to speak beyond this, it should be us. We have vision, so we should not perish, right? You're right. So those are the things that I would encourage us, is that to really think about a bigger, better, brighter future with bigger, better, more fulfilling and lasting relationships. And that just changes the attitude and the tenor on how we're going to start moving forward. I mean, if anyone is listening to this, you got to look at how you and I interact. It's always on the basis of what we're not even concerned. I ain't thinking about Trump. I ain't thinking about Bush. I ain't thinking about Clinton. I ain't thinking about none of them. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that if we follow what he's teaching us, he said that white man will be wrapped around our pinky finger and we wouldn't even know he's there unless we look down at it. And I think that's the attitude that would help us to build bigger and better futures and to qualify ourselves for positions that are awaiting us, not within the confines of their idea, but on the other side. It's in Master Fard's Muhammad's idea that we're going to see our future.
Amen. Beautifully said, Brother Bedford. Tell us what you got going on these days.
This is it. What you're doing, I'm thinking of ways that you and I can work, again, not talking it, but living it. What is the collaboration that myself and Sister Sajdah can do to just help one brother or sister, two brothers or sisters, right? That has to be our thinking, not what's the next big $1 million deal, what's the next 6-figure deal. That's irrelevant. It means nothing if we're not doing it in its proper context. So that's what's happening with me. I got
something for you, Brother Bedford. I got a television show I'm working on. I got something for you.
Good.
I got something for you. I'll call you.
Good. That's what we need to do. I think that's the big thing is to become more magnetic and attract people to what we're attempting to do and not chase all of these fleeting ideas. And so with that, I'm striving to build a model of masterminds on the principles of what we've been taught. But of course, in the business sense, we call it masterminds. They've attributed that to Napoleon Hill. But that's been my focus, is to help and engage in conversations like this with ambitious Black entrepreneurs who want a bigger, better, brighter future.
Is it brobedford.com or?
Yep. Either one. So think about modern technology. So you can spell it out if you want to, or you can just either way. And what that'll do is get you on, if you'll be able to read something, and then just give me your email and I'll just send you stuff periodically to help you. So that the order, if they want to get those conversations, they're free. They can go to conversationswithblackmillionaires.com if they want to listen to some of those. And I would encourage people, just listen to those old interviews and how I'm making mistakes and all of those different things. But it's a process that could help someone who's thinking or feeling stuck with, I got to be perfect before I start my business. Or I'm not ready to contact Sister Sajdah yet. I'm not ready yet. When will you be ready? If not now, when?
If not now, when?
If not now, when? So hopefully you can see that I wasn't always articulate as I am today. And that could probably help someone. And you'll notice that those millionaires ain't that bright either. It's just like you and me. And so we should definitely get away from idol worshiping and start focusing on the gifts and the talents that God gave us. And let's move out and do what we need to do.
That's right. Well, thank you, Brother Bedford, for joining me again for another epic conversation. I'll give you a call on that television show because I got something for you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Like you said, we have to just continue to become more magnetic and help to wake up some of the people who have been in the diaspora and they just kind of been hanging out there because they made a mistake, but they still believe in this and love the teachings and want to help and support. And those people are in key positions around the world. So
Absolutely.
Pastor Muhammad is busy, you know.
Absolutely.
Him and Elijah Muhammad are busy.
Absolutely.
Putting this thing together for us. And so we just have to get ready.
Yeah, they created a future for us. They created a big future for us. I don't think, if anybody, we have no reason to be sad about what's happening. Is it pretty? You know, is it, does it cause, do we still have to function? Yeah. But if we're paying attention, we've been told that this is how it should happen. And we just have to, as you just mentioned, big fields not only await us, but friends have been made for us
everywhere,
all over the world. Absolutely.
Everywhere. I cannot tell you, I am working on a documentary and a book, because in developing this home, I cannot tell you that how many places I've gone where I've met friends.
Wow.
Of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from all walks of life.
I can only imagine.
Who have just come and said, "Hey, I'll help you. I got this, or I have this craft." I'm talking about all over. And I started to discover that as I was traveling around the world and doing business. And all I kept saying was just feeling, smaller and smaller, but just really out of humility, because I was like, these are really, really, I just had a sense of how powerful they really and truly are, because it seemed like everywhere I turned, and even now today still turn, especially as I started to elevate in levels of business. That's the part I think that surprised me. Because, as you start to move into that developer phase, that's different. That's different from being a doctor, or you say, okay, I'm a doctor, I work at a hospital, I work at an office, I'm an attorney, I work at a certain place. When you start moving into those areas of development where you're sitting there with developers, and somebody there knows usually one of the two of them, or both.
Right.
They might be white, they might be Italian, they may be Asian. That piece right there is like, okay.
It's a great feeling. It is such a great feeling.
Yeah, it just elevates you. So thank you, Brother Bedford. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you more. Thank you so much for providing the platform. And most of all, just being a great example of showing us that this can be done. And as you just mentioned, it doesn't matter the level, the sophistication, the room. This works for us.
It works.
It works for us. So thank you, Sister Sajdah.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, and we'll be in touch.
Wa alaikum salam, sis. Appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Let me remind you all about a couple of things. Y'all know on July 9th, we're having the fundraiser for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House. And so if you go to eventbrite.com and search Donate and Simp, you can register. Look, come in, fly in, just like Brother Bedford and I were just talking. Just come and learn how to network and connect with your brothers and sisters, because that's what we do. That's what I do for fun. I'm always going somewhere and sitting down and thinking and doing global thought, having global thought conversations, and how we're going to build and what we're going to do next. And so come on up. We're going to do that in the back garden. We call it the Garden of Peace, because it's one of those areas that's so peaceful that for me, it feels like time stands still. And so we're going to be back there on July 9th from 5 to 8 p.m. We're going to be partnering with Magnolia Crescent Orchard and Non-Alcoholic Winery. So they're going to bring some of their non-alcoholic sparkling teas and non-alcoholic wines for us to taste and sip. The first 50 people will get to taste the Sajdah bean pie infused ice cream, courtesy of Sean Michelle's. That's going to be there as well. So we're going to put a few bistro tables back there, and you can just come and sit back and chill and relax, but get registered and get used to elevating your mind and having different levels of fun. To me, the conversations, the brainstorming, doing what Brother Bedford and I just did in front of you all. We do that on the phone and just talk about ideas. And so let's move into that kind of development, because one of the things that I've learned as I've been studying, Sister said, that's a divine ice cream. It really is. It really is. Brother Yaya put his foot in that. One of the things I've learned in researching the original owners of the home that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad bought in 1952 is that that's what they did. They bought these large homes so that they could gather together and network among their friends. And when I started looking at the list of people that were there and having these conversations, they're all iconic people. Names that I recognize, like Mr. Aaron Montgomery Ward and the Goodyears. And there's a whole list of people. When I started going down the list, I said, man, look at this. So this is what we have to start doing too. We're supposed to study other cultures, study the white man. We should be studying. So let's get together. So come on up, 4847 South Woodlawn Avenue, 5 to 8 p.m. We're going to get there about 4. So it's our place. So we're just going to be back there until it get dark, hang out, have some fun, donate. The finish line is in sight. We're almost done. And I can't wait to share with you the Honorable Elijah Muhammad experience. And guess what? We're working on virtual tours in the metaverse. That's a whole nother conversation. So peace and blessings, family. You all know the website. Let me put it up here. I've been scrolling across the bottom of here, how you can join my mailing list, how you can make a donation really quick right now if you want to on Cash App. Go $MOEToday. This is a very expensive undertaking, this house. I'm a little over $3.5 million in now. And so we probably need another 900 or so thousand just to get us going. And then of course there's going to be staffing and all of that kind of stuff. But once we get the construction done, then we're home free. We can start to use the house to make money and allow you all to come and visit and learn and that kind of stuff. So help us get it done. SajdahHouseDonations.com. Let me put that to go across the bottom of the screen, or you can do it to Cash App, which is right here, MOEToday, on Cash App, or if you want to do it more formally, you can go to SajdahHouseDonations.com and make sure you get your commemorative coin. I really want y'all to get the coins. We got about 1,200 coins left. Buy up those coins, because let me tell you something. They are heirlooms, and they're going to be something that you're going to wish you had later once they're all gone, because they come from the copper off of the messenger's home. This is not just a cute piece of jewelry. It is a spiritual piece of jewelry. And I like to wear jewelry that matters. And if you are like me and you like to wear jewelry that matters, we have the pendants, and then we also have the graded coins. So anyway, with that, family, inshallah, I will see you all Saturday for the Sajdah Saturday morning coffee talk. Make sure you get registered for the event, and peace and blessings.
This is Sister Sajdah Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajdah House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. As we renovate and restore the former home of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we have recycled the old copper gutters and downspouts and created a 1 ounce 39 millimeter coin made of 100% pure copper. Each coin is professionally graded and has its own barcode and registration number. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at SajdahHouse.com.